honestly think that most people go into veterinary medicine because they love to watch animals, okay? And I actually never really wanted to be a vet. I thought...
That didn't work out so well.
No, it didn't work out so well. I thought I was actually going to be a human physician, and when I was 19, I ended up doing research in pediatric oncology, clinical research, and every kid I touched died. And I was fascinated by the research, but I couldn't take the loss. And I was just too young. So I went off to do other things, and the things I went off to do were to watch animals in Africa. And I ended up getting a master's degree in true ethology, you know, and I took all of the things, I'd always bird watched, I'd always done all the naturalist stuff. And then I realized that all of this behavioral stuff was a reflection of dogs' brains. And I'll tell you why I went to vet school. I don't think most people know this. It was at a time in academia where I wasn't sure I'd be able to get a job if I just got a PhD, but I knew if I was a vet, I could support my habit of needing to know things.
There you go.
And I knew
so
I
being a
could
vet
do
would pay
that.
the bills, and
Exactly.
you would be able to do your research on the side.
Exactly, and that was my plan. And then I stumbled across behavioral medicine, and I saw my first obsessive compulsive dog, and I was done. I suddenly realized there was a place for people like me who thought a little differently. Look at me. Hold your breath. Deep breath. Deep. Perfect.
If you ask just about anyone in academia about behavior research and pets, the name of Dr. Karen Overall invariably comes up. Her own website is full of protocols she has written on everything from choosing toys for pets, assessing stress in dogs, teaching manners, and pharmacological interventions for behavior issues. In the basement of a lab at the Atlantic Veterinary College, she is working to try and identify behaviors in puppies that might be a telltale sign of resiliency challenges later in life.
In human psychiatry, there's a school of thought that says that if you react to sensory things, that's because your brain has a different development path. I'm not necessarily sure that's true, but what I think the data to date do show us, because some people have come up with some genes that are throwing a signal frequency that are great enough, they're all regulatory genes, so it strongly suggests that your brain is wired a little differently and it changes your threshold level. The reason we're putting lidocaine on is so that this doesn't hurt, because we don't want to be part of the scenario that helps to cause dogs to be afraid of going to the vet. Because when they have, the first time they may have physical pain is us. And we don't have to do that for anything that requires a sharp end. Topical lidocaine stops this, and it's not expensive.
All of my work to date has been on sort of understanding normal brain development and how environmental influence can change that and possibly result in sort of behavioral problems later in life. So up until about 2 years ago, we modeled that sort of in the laboratory, and about 2 years ago I connected with Dr. Overall and sort of shifted my focus into working with companion animals. So basically doing exactly the same thing, but with a different species.
We take blood in a different way than everybody else does, so,
So there's a marker with that?
we think there might be. I had done a very underpowered genome scan. When you look at the pattern of noise fears in dogs, it looks like it's a very simple inheritance pattern. It looks like it's a dominant pattern. And then when we started to look at the genes, we realized there were at least 6 or 8 involved, at least 6 or 8 involved.
We're gathering all that information. We're getting as many puppies in as we can, and let's just observe them under all of these different conditions. You know, whenever they're challenged with a simple learning problem, when they're introduced to new people, how do they respond? How do they respond to strange and novel noises? What are their behavioral responses? What are their physiological responses to these situations?
434799. She was a trooper. It's a little surprise.
If any of those dogs have any behaviors that are somewhat abnormal or mildly problematic, we can go back and say, was there something in their behavior, in their physiology, in their genetics, when we saw them as young pups, that could have predicted such an outcome?
There are bad responses. We had a dog yesterday who was so upset we had to turn everything down and off, and we talked to them about an appointment to medicate the dog for his developing fear of noises, and that dog is only 6 months old and he already has enough behavior problems and he needs help. And he would never have gotten that because he doesn't really have a diagnosis yet.
Yeah.
He's not to the point of that, but we picked it up yesterday and we recommended one of our interventional appointments.
And although many of us have a sense that, well, we kind of understand what a normal puppy would look like, there has not to date been any work done that sort of tracks puppies from a very early age until they fully mature into adulthood.
I'm sure Yasmin's picking this up on the video, but notice he's grabbing the mat with his teeth now. A dog who reacted the way he did at a decibel level in the upper 40s to a sound and had to leave, it's not normal. Most of our dogs who have profound noise reactivity or fears of noise, down please, that was 62.3. That noise recording was designed to be provocative. So it has a bunch of highly reverberant concussive noises on it, and that's what he reacted to. And he reacted at a level that is lower than the loudness of an average conversation. But most of our dogs, they require some big booming thing. And what I picked up on there was how once he reacted the first time and we turned it down, he had trouble focusing even on the food, and he was looking everywhere. And now I sort of wonder how much of him going person to person and around the room was about how he's perceiving these other things. Buildings make noise. There is a professor at ABC who's interested in ultrasound, and one of the things we're hoping to do this year is, working with Paul, look at what buildings and machinery and buildings sound like from the perspective of the dog or the cow. I'm interested in the dog part, and he's gone around and measured a bunch of people's houses, and it turns out kitchens where we all feed our dogs are tremendously noisy. It's an open field. He gets 5 minutes to explore the room. And what we look at is how many things they go visit, how often they stop, whether or not they hang out with people. The dogs who hang out with people don't tend to explore the room. And dogs who are very bold and explorational or explorative will go around the room, they'll look in all the boxes, they'll grab that toy, they'll grab a Kong, they'll interact with everything in the environment, and then they'll go look at people. Chances are they'll find a toy or something. People think you're crazy when you say you want to do this. I mean, I've asked for money to do that 20 years ago and no one was interested. They're like, we don't care about dogs. Well, we should care about dogs because they live intimately with humans and they share the same environment. You're never going to get a better model. Your lab rat doesn't share your environment. Your lab rat didn't grow up over 60,000 years working with you in early human history. The only species on the planet that did that is dogs. And that's why they have convergent genes for metabolism and neoplasia and neurochemistry and anxiety disorders, et cetera, et cetera. They've shaped our brains, we've shaped their brains, and we've never really taken full advantage of that.
The work in Charlottetown is attracting international attention. Dr. Yasmin Demirabus is head of the Animal Behavior Clinic at Ankara University in Turkey, and also is the European Specialist in Behavior at the European College of Animal Welfare. She came to work with one of the leaders in the field, but was also surprised to learn that resiliency work in North America isn't as widespread as it has become in Europe.
It's surprising to see that Dr. Overall is the only person here.
Well, behavior is new.
Behavior is very new. I thought that in Canada everywhere is Dr. Overall. Was my reason because she's one of the foremost experts in this field, and I always wanted to collaborate with her on a joint project, and I sent her an email and asked whether it's possible to work with her, and she accepted my offer, and I'm very happy to be here working in this wonderful research team. I'm the first one who did PhD in animal behavior in Turkey, so it's a pretty new topic, but now we have lots of different researchers working on or specialized on animal behavior.
Even just like routine veterinary exams, just giving vaccines, so many of the animals are afraid, and you just kind of like, yes, you get it done, but you feel a little bad after. Whereas with Karen, every single client that came in the room was like, this is the best appointment we've ever had. They're never like this at the vets. And it was just really fun to be able to
You want to be the friendly vet.
animals leave in a good mood. So.
Well, back in Nova Scotia, a woman from Europe is putting resiliency into practice, using many of the same techniques being studied in the vet college laboratories.
So I did some online studying in the UK to learn more about age-free work, and the knowledge I gained from that, together with my hersenwerk knowledge, came together, and I developed the sensory room. And in the sensory room, we will see it, but I put on a whole lot of materials. There's food involved. It's all really easy because I don't want to have frustrations there. It's not about the human-dog connection, but it's about the dog walking around and getting all the information from what's there, and also making choices. So where we expect a bouncy Labrador, he is just exploring, making choices.
We certainly came in bouncy.
Yes,
But then he...
yes, and that's what often happens, and then they ease into it. And
I gotta be honest, this looks like I didn't clean my basement at the moment.
okay.
So what am I looking at?
I want to come to your basement with my dog then, because it sounds like a perfect sensory room to me. We are looking at the sensory room, and I only use stuff people have at home or are really easy to get and cheap,
Yeah, that makes sense.
because then they can do it at home afterwards. What I do is try to engage as much senses of a dog as possible. So, for example, feed the touch with all the different surfaces.
Yeah.
They get different touch, and so they navigate over it or not. That we will see what they do with it.
Because will some dogs avoid?
Yes,
certain-
yes, and oftentimes I see that they start by avoiding it because they are so overwhelmed with all the other senses that they don't have time to process that extra information of their feet as well.
At the end of February, he suffered a traumatic back injury and was paralyzed.
Really?
Yeah.
You would never know it.
No. Well, if you
Well, I
look
mean,
at
you might,
yeah,
because
when
you've
you
seen
look at
before
his
and
hind
after.
end, and I think this is the first time you've seen him in person since I've sent Tessa videos before.
The way I offer puzzles to dogs is really to help them building resilience, opposed to what you see often, that the dog just gets a puzzle and people leave it there and let them figure it out, and then the dogs get frustrated, and frustration is not a good emotion to have when you are solving something. So that actually doesn't build resilience.
I think you got them all.
When a lot of sniffing and thinking is involved, they get tired very easily because their mind is working, their body is working, their whole system is working, so they get tired. And often we don't really see that because there's treats involved and they want to go on and on and on and on. But actually when you watch them closely, and that's what we do when we do puzzles, then you see those little signs of that they getting tired, and they walk away, they forget treats, they turn around, they become wilder, more excited, and all those little signs tell me that the dog is getting tired. So yeah, we keep it in little moments, and that's enough. Yeah. This setting like this is really good for those bodies that just have recovered from an injury. You can see them gaining confidence, or they overcome some of their fears, or their resilience grows. For example, I have this thing here, and it often drops down.
All right.
And when it
Oh,
falls
'cause it
down,
fall off.
when it falls off, then some dogs just scare away, and other dogs will just like, okay, I can I can eat the treats from the floor as well. And also that one makes a lot of noise with the containers in there, and some dogs are really scared of that. So if I see a dog is getting scared, that's not enriching, that's not helping them in any way, then I take some of the containers out and see what they do next, and otherwise I remove it.
I'm looking for a translational model of what makes a resilient dog. And where I think we are going, and it's funny that you asked about the certificate, because my epiphany moment when I woke up at 3 a.m., as I often do, thinking about what I've seen this week, I always have that half hour where I'm sort of processing everything and then I collapse again. But my epiphany moment was what we really need are a series of veterinarians who are willing to see young animals for the first couple of years of their life. And
Catch it early.
Not only catch it early, but they're gonna, when I went to Penn Vet, we had a pediatrics and genetics clinic, and it was, yes, a vaccination clinic, but it was meant to screen for these early disorders, but we didn't have the behavioral component in it. Well, imagine something like that, where the behavioral component is there, and you work with these dogs, and it's the expectation that every dog gets humane training, and every dog gets the right care, and every dog gets that information. When I first started the modern incarnation of the behavioral medicine specialty and the behavior clinic at Penn Vet years ago, everybody who called was gonna, if you can't fix my dog, he's dead, and you have to fix it by next week, he's dead. But, our questionnaire always asks, have you considered euthanizing this dog? Because if you put yes on that, you are already halfway there. Because the people whose dogs and cats and horses get the best are the people who say, I just want to understand this and meet this dog's needs. I know this is an illness. I want what's best for the animal. Any of those things. And regardless of what I tell them, that dog or cat or horse gets better. It just takes time, it takes medication, it takes accurate intervention, it takes an accurate diagnosis. But those people are already committed to going through all of those hoops. If you've already said, yes, I've considered euthanizing this, you're already halfway to living without them and giving up.
I think a lot of the euthanasias, the behavioral euthanasias, can be prevented. A lot of people don't understand the behaviors of their pets, so just by educating the owners, even if the behaviors don't change in the animal, the owner's perspective changes, and they have a new appreciation and understanding for their pet, so it improves their relationships and I hope everybody's quality of life.
Thanks, you're very brave.
I have a broken leg. The people who come see us are really motivated. It's the 2.3 million dogs that are euthanized in the United States every year because of behavior problems, just in the 100 shelters that are in the ASPCA's list that don't get that care.
We've been seeing a lot of the little dogs that get carried around are not as adventurous, even though they're from really high quality breeders and that sort of thing, that they...
Do you think that's because they're carried around and protected all the time, maybe?
Yeah, I do. I don't think they get to kind of experience trial and error learning the same way that the dogs that can't be carried in a purse figure out.
No, that's something that people wouldn't think of, though, right? When they have those things.
Probably not. We've been really surprised at how much more outgoing and curious the dogs from shelter situations, for the most part, with some very definite exceptions.
Why do you think that is?
I think they've had to. I think they had to adapt, and they had to kind of figure out how to exist in various environments that might not have been ideal for them, but they've been able to bounce back, and it's...
So they have to explore.
Yeah. So being in a quiet room with, we're not shouting at them, we're not doing anything mean or frightening, just kind of seeing their reactions, they're pretty content to walk around and sniff all the boxes and explore and kind of give all of our tests a chance, whereas There are a lot of puppies that sleep through a lot of them, which is very cute, but it drags. It's long.
Sometimes I have to ask owners to sit in the middle because the dog is, why am I doing this on my own? This is scary. And then I think, oh, just sit in the middle. And then the dog says, oh, we do it together. Okay, I'm fine.
Was that how you understood it in Europe before coming here? Like that resiliency connection, or is that something that you've learned?
It was, but of course not in those words, because we just look at the dog and want him to have a great time and want to enrich his life and want to make things better. And that's how we approach it. And then we saw how many benefits it has. Dogs get more calm, relaxed, can think better, are sometimes their reactivity helps. They learn to communicate with their owners better. So there's a lot going on, and that, of course, we observed. But we didn't call it resilience or connected it in that way as the way they did that. Yeah.
It strikes me that, I mean, the studies on dogs, but this might be relevant to animals other than dogs.
That's my whole world, translational neuroscience. So the work that we do in one mammalian species is transferable to all others, because we all develop in almost exactly the same way with respect to brain development, with respect to behavioral emergence, that kind of thing. There's so much overlap.
From giving dogs puzzles, I have started to see a dog as a puzzle. So I have done the dynamic dog course. I'm a dynamic dog practitioner now. And when I watch a dog, I can see how he moves, where he might have pain, where he, how he moves his body, what choices he makes. So I know a lot about the dog now too. So when the owner and myself are sitting next to the sensory room while their dog is sniffing, I can give them so much information about every aspect of their dog, behavior-wise, but also how they move and what I see in their movements and what choices they make.
I love how much we don't know about this, and it's really fun and exciting to kind of try and figure it out. And I'm surprised how much I've been enjoying the research.
I accidentally stumbled over the perfect field for me, and it was so heartbreaking in the beginning, and the way people behave towards their animals, that I had to change it. And so for the first part of my career in veterinary behavioral medicine, I spent all my time trying to educate vets and owners about how to change the way they treated dogs and cats and horses. And people tell me I did, and that's enough. But it mattered to me a lot.
I can tell.
That I left it better.